Well, hello everyone. Welcome. Thanks for showing up for using digital credentials to close the skills gap, how associations can lead the way. We've got a jam-packed hour for you here today. We'll be covering a pretty important topic and a great opportunity for associations to really help in a tangible way close the growing and expanding skills gap that exists across the world, but primarily we're going to be talking about the United States today. And so our agenda is to talk about the skills gap and what that is and share some recent data with you. That's gonna roll right into the discussion on digital credentials and badges and associations' really unique position in the industry out of all types of organizations to help make a tangible impact to close that particular skills gap. And then we assembled a series of real-life case studies that we've found of associations using digital badges, and so we're going to share them with you and how these organizations are approaching it to give you some practical knowledge of what exists out there now. And then we're going to take a look at the practical technology. For those of you that have followed along on Talented Learning webinars, you know that we're all about being practical and practical advice. We leave the esoteric and futuristic stuff to others, and what we try to focus on is really what you can use and leverage now in a smart and efficient way to provide the most impact. So that's a lot to cover in 1 hour, but we're gonna get right to it and introduce ourselves and then get going. So I'm John Lay. I am the CEO and lead analyst at Talented Learning. Talented Learning is now in its 4th year. We're fiercely independent learning technology, research consultants and analysts. We write blogs and do webinars and have premium content all around learning technology for associations, for extended enterprise, pretty much any learning technology that's not focused on just core HR and employee topics. We, as I mentioned, independent and practical advice. As part of our process, I've personally now have reviewed over 125 different learning management systems and track that in our massive database here of knowledge and features and functionality of the industry at large. And so we continue to grow that so that we can study that and analyze that so that we can help our buyers buy better. We help LMS or learning technology buyers define their requirements, figure out who to talk to from a short list standpoint, and even full scale selection processes. In my travels of those 125, a few years ago, I've met our co-presenter today, Linda Bowers, who's the CTO of WBT Systems, and if not the most experienced, probably one of the most experienced individuals I know that combine the business and the technology and the practical experience working with association learning technology. And here is a subject matter expert today to really help share some of her expertise. Linda?
Thanks, John, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. As John mentioned, I'm Linda Bowers. I'm the CTO at WBT Systems, and I've been working in the LMS industry for over 15 years with a particular focus on associations and their requirements for the last quite a number of years. My background is primarily in implementation, so from both a business and technical perspective, so hopefully I'll have some insights to share with you today. WBT Systems, which is the company I represent, we've been in business for about just over 20 years now, and we're based in Dublin, Ireland, with a big focus on, but primarily our focus on the United States. However, as you can see, we have a large amount of global implementations with our LMS used in over 23 countries, 20 languages, and really widespread. We have over the years focused on a lot of different areas, but we're really focused on the association industry now. And Top Class, our LMS, has a wide variety of features because it's been around for quite a long time. But over the last number of years, we've been focusing all our roadmap energies and design on the areas that are needed for associations. So things like continuing education, certification modules, and integration are sort of key areas that are important. but more recently we've been focusing particularly on social and gamification features, which obviously the badging and credentialing areas is a real key element to that. And we've added in things like Mozilla Open Badges as integrations, and the ability to share your badging and credentials with the world is obviously a key element to everything we're going to be talking about today.
Great, great. Well, let's start right off and see who we have on the line here today. Get this working.
Perfect. So while John kicks off, what we're going to do is set up a number of polls we're hoping everybody will respond to as we get through the webinar today. We'll have a couple of them interspersed throughout the hour. And the first one we'd like everybody to participate in is just to get a feel for who's on the webinar. So if everybody could, anybody wants to respond, could vote, it would be great. So it's, I work in the following broad sector: association, education, government, corporate, other.
Right.
If everybody could respond to that, that would be great.
Badges, I think my experience, have really grown out of the education space. So it looks like education were the first type of organizations, with now associations really closing in and making big progress. But on the line today, it's not too dissimilar than that. Let me share these results. There we go. You can see we have about a quarter of us from associations, almost half of us from education, a few corporate folks here rounding out their knowledge, and then a smattering of others. So I've got a nice diversity here today. Cool. So since we have all that experience in association and education and working with skills gaps, perhaps, what is, let me share that, let me get to, there we go, we'll launch that second poll. So here we have a poll of how many open jobs do you think there are in the United States right now? I was pretty shocked when I did the research putting together for this on what exactly there would be, you know, because all these kids graduate in college, you know, they're looking for jobs, they can't get jobs, they're living with their parents. You hear these stories all the time, and you know, you would think there's not many open jobs if that's the case. But as it turns out, let's see what everybody thinks. We have 12% just think it's 500,000, 24% think it's 1.5, half of us thinking it's around 5.5 million open jobs, and even almost 20% of us thinking that there's 15 million open jobs. I mean, there's only 300 million people inside the U.S., so that's pretty significant. It's pretty significant when you think about what everybody, you know, that most of the folks here on the line think that's more than 5 million users, and what were 5 million open jobs, and those open jobs are what the skill gaps is. And according to the Department of Labor, there's 5.6 million open jobs in the U.S. alone, and that's from data in December 2016. And the Department of Labor, and there's certainly a lot of debate on this topic on why there is a skills gap, and you know, what are the fundamental reasons and ways to close that skills gap. There's certainly different points of view, like there are in most topics, but in general is that there's not enough people being trained for in-demand jobs, and the training that you get in formal education doesn't translate to what employers need out in the open market. And college graduates are smart, but they don't have the right skills. And those skill gaps, according to employers, are both from a hard and a soft skill standpoint. And certain industries are more affected than others: healthcare, engineering, computer science. Certainly any of the trades that you have to use your hands are also very much affected. And what makes the problem even worse is that as the employment rate goes down, there's less and less people to fill more and more jobs. And so we'll send the slides in PDF form afterwards. We got a lot of links in today's webinar so that you can go and dig in some further information. But what you see is from 2009, which is in the depths of the crisis, for the financial crisis on the U.S., we had a 10% unemployment rate, but there was still 2.1 million open jobs. So 10% of the population can't find a job, but they were open. And it turns out a lot of those jobs that were open were in manufacturing and trade, and a lot of those type of jobs need an apprentice program. So you know, if you want to become an electrician, you have to go through a process where you're learning and being an apprentice, and then eventually, you know, you turn into a master electrician or a master plumber, or whether HVAC, or you know, any type of trade, for example. But the number of apprenticeship programs in the United States has decreased from 32 to 21,000 available. So the very solution to the problem is getting worse by lack of investment in the actual apprenticeship programs. And that's made the average job to fill go from 24 to 28 days in this last 7 or 8 years. And that's pretty significant across those 5.6 million. And so what you have is a problem that's getting worse. And it's even more exacerbated because of the low unemployment, the whole low unemployment rate. And so, you know, what is the problem and solution, Linda?
Well, I think so. As John's been talking about, the big problem at the moment is that there's just not enough people with the right skills for the job openings, and there's been from what we're seeing, there's a growing recognition out there that the general education qualifications or degree qualifications that are on offer today just can't keep up with the rapid pace of change in the employment sector and the needs of employers these days. With the current system of education, they can't change the curriculum fast enough because all of the industries are evolving so quickly. In fact, a recent survey conducted showed that there was 16% of Americans actually think that a four-year degree program is a good way to prepare people for a job in the modern economy, because really people need more hands-on practical experience. So one of the solutions that certainly people are moving towards is improving competency-based skills training and looking at more closely aligning it to your continuing education. So as you're moving through employment and as you're trying to get employment, doing smaller chunks of competency-based training, which ties into your continuing education. And that really leads us very closely aligned to this new approach of digital credentials and the growing use of digital credentials as a way for job seekers to demonstrate that they have the skills and employers to see what they've gained and achieve, sort of check the validation of it because of where those digital credentials are awarded from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And that's perfect role in here to digital credentials. And so we've got an interesting little poll here. Let me get this launched while you introduce it.
Yeah, so here's another poll for you. So this is really, we're just trying to determine, there is a lot of different terminology out there, so really we want to get everybody's assessment of, is there really a difference in today's case, and is there a difference between a digital badge and a digital credential? Let's see what everybody thinks, because everybody you talk to seems to have a different thought on this one.
Mm-hmm. When I started preparing for this presentation and putting this together, I think I would have fell into the maybe category.
I think certainly I see some people interchange them, and some people, in a lot of cases, people have very strong opinions, but they're quite different. So it'll be interesting to see.
All right, let's see what everybody thinks. Share these results. So kind of split down. Lots of people think there is almost half of us, there is a difference between a digital credential and a badge, and 29% no, 24% maybe. Nobody chose the other option. I guess that's it. It's binary. We're almost binary. So that's not surprising that there's some variation on that. But what my theory that I've been working on is that they're all loosely defined synonyms. These different words: digital credentials, digital badges, digital certificates, digital micro certification or micro credentials. All of those things are similar, and credential and badge and certificate seem to be terms that are more closely aligned. So if you notice, the big difference is the word digital, because it's the digital that makes the difference from the traditional credential. And there's no body or official body that's out there that says micro credentials need to be this big, or a credential has to mean this, or a digital badge, you can only earn it this way. There is no rules. And when there's no rules, you have a lot of gray area between different definitions. And I think that's what's happening in the space right now. And from the corporate and association learning management system space, we've always wrapped this badging up as part of quote-unquote gamification capabilities versus digital badging. And so it's while it started in the education industry, we're seeing now in associations and in corporations extending that gamification out to the digital credentials. And as I said, the digital part is the key here. And so when you think about a traditional certificate, it's very covert, unless somebody comes to your office or they're going to go to your home office, they're not going to see your certificate that you earned for some training class or something that you did hanging in the wall. And likewise, you rarely see anybody scan one of those 8 by 10 or 11 inch pieces of paper and attach that anywhere or display that anywhere. So once you earn it, sometimes if you get the initials behind your name type of thing, you could display that knowledge. But otherwise, your certificate, other than the knowledge itself, is kind of worthless. But a digital credential or a digital certificate or a digital badge or a digital award is overt. It's meant for sharing. It's meant to be posted on websites and email signatures and blogs and on social media. And digital badges, you can collect from a lot of different sources and store them together so that you can show a picture of lifelong learning versus just a piece of paper hanging in the wall. And that lifelong learning of exactly that, of picking up skills and competencies over time by displaying those together or grouping those together, it tells a better picture, a more holistic picture of an employee's or a potential employee's skills. And digital credentials, as we'll see, have this concept of metadata, a fancy word that we'll make real simple for you here in a second. Linda?
So as John said, there is a large amount of terminology used in this area, but they're also used quite a number of different things. So quite a lot of times when people talk about digital badges in particular, as John said, they're sort of more steered towards gamification as a way to really get people to engage with systems or contribute, participate, etc. So in a lot of cases, badges are used for motivation, for gamification of learning, for rewarding participation in things like discussion forums or the number of times you've logged into a system or an LMS or membership in a group, etc. And that's quite common from a digital badge perspective because it shows your participation in something. Then in parallel, you also have digital credentials, which can also be used as a way to acknowledge achievement or mastery of a particular skill or competency or standard in education or an achievement of a certification program. Or in many cases, we talk about something like micro-credentialing, stepping stones in a larger program. So you may get micro-credentialing badges as you progress through a much larger program. So for example, if you have a 2-year program that has maybe 8 or 10 components, it means as you move through it, you can get smaller badges which give you recognition earlier on in this case of micro-credentials. So it's a good way for people to achieve things and have them recognized and be able to share them with other people in their industry and in their social circles and see what they've achieved. So moving on to some of the more practical elements of what a digital badge actually is and the digital badge metadata, there's actually a number of standards around this, particularly if you're going to allow people, if you want to award badges as an association or a training association, you need to be able to conform to these standards so that then they can allow people to share them across all their different social platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or Open Badges or Credly or whatever the system is. And so in this case, there's obviously your standard things such as name and description, and then tags you can use within that. And then the key thing probably for everybody is the image itself. So that identifies the badge, can associate it with whoever the awarding body was, and it can become a representation of that achievement. Then obviously you have the learner who received it, And then the key point here is also the issuer. And so the issuer always goes along with the badge, and from anywhere that a badge is linked to, typically you can hyperlink back to whoever the issuer was. So it's very good from the perspective of a person who's achieved the badge. If you're an employer, you can go look at their badges, click on them, and see what association or industry awarded it, and it gives it validation and allows them to validate that it's actually sort of come from somewhere reputable. Mm-hmm. Similarly, then you have things like timestamps and expirations, which allow you to determine, if you're the awarding body, if this is something that needs to be redone or re-achieved on a regular basis, or if it's something that you just is more a soft skill that you can keep indefinitely. And then you can upload any additional supporting evidence. So they're sort of the key constructs of an overall badge, but really gives gives it some weight when it's shared across different platforms.
Mm-hmm. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg, too, of what you can include. I found myself looking at the actual spec from a technical standpoint, which is out of my wheelhouse, and there's probably another 25 things of metadata that you can track around that particular event. You don't have to. You're not compelled to as an issuer, but there's a lot of data, and I thought the most interesting one is that you can actually link to the supporting evidence of work. So if you had assignments, or you had to write a paper, or do something as part of earning that credential, you can actually have that work embedded in there, or links to that work embedded in there also. So a lot more than just a badge on the wall. So based on that new definition, now that there probably is some there probably is some overlay between these terms. Does your organization use badges, digital credentials, open badges, micro credentials, macro credentials? Uh-oh. Well, that's not what I hope. But actually that's good, because everybody's coming to learn, because we're looking like almost 90% of us say no right now. That's surprising. We have somebody that's considering it right now, and they are tracking competencies here in the chat. Somebody else has seen some examples in some government examples, so that's interesting. Let's share that. So 84%, 84% say no. You're just trying to get into this, or thinking about getting into this, and so the rest of this will be very relevant to you. For the 11% that are saying yes, I'm going to come to you next week and see if we can collect some information, if you want to share, about how you're using it, as we're trying to build not only the examples we're going to show you here in a minute, but also build a broader library of associations that are using badges, digital badges, so that we can try to share it for the industry, and everybody learns a little bit better. So rolling right into the reason. Oh, let me hide that thing. There we go. So rolling right into open badges is the next topic. So if you have a digital badge, that's great, and all that metadata, all that data that's inside the badge, that's great too, but you can't have everybody doing it willy-nilly, and so you have to have some sort of standard that people follow, the different constituents follow, so that the issuers follow and that the earners follow, and that standard is open badges, and that is part of the IMS Global Learning Consortium. Right now has taken ownership for that at the beginning of the year for this open spec, and this is the technology and how you pass that data and how you store that data in there so that it can be shared. And probably a good analogy is open badges is kind of like SCORM, not the SCORM standard, and in that I mean that in the SCORM standard, if you author your content, your online content, in the SCORM standard or the XAPI standard, any one of those, then any LMS that can that adheres to that standard can play and track and record completion in that SCORM related course. The same goes with open badges, in that if anybody that follows that particular standard it's all interchangeable, and then the whole ecosystem grows. And so the issuers are anybody that's either creating the badges or the graphical creation, or they're issuing them, or the associations or the government industries, or anybody that's issuing the badges are issuers. And the earners of the badges can be anybody, but they have to store those badges somewhere. You can just get them and you could store them on your your local machine, but then people don't get a chance to see them. So how you display them and store them is really two main. It's called a backpack service, where you put your badges in your backpack. And LMSs, are learning management systems, are one way to store them. So you can store all your badges in there just naturally because you're earning them there in the most cases. But many of the examples that we found here in our research are using third-party backpack services that are designed to do exactly that. And Mozilla, and Acclaim by Pearson, and Credly, Badger are all examples of these services where you can go create a profile and you can start collecting your badges from any of these places. The nice thing, though, is that because it is open badges, you can store in a couple of these, or you can have it in a few different places at any given time. It's not just mutually exclusive or just one place that you can store your badges. So we talked about where to display them previously, but here's just a list: your email, blogs, social media, website, your digital resume, which is LinkedIn, backpacks. But what's a badge really worth, Linda?
Well, I think what we've been seeing over the past while, and it is still in the early phases, but is that learners really like badges. They give them the ability to display their accreditation in their professional field. It gives them a way to reflect the effort that they're putting in. So as they are doing continuing education and training and trying to progress themselves, they can effectively show that off. And it allows them to collect a lifelong learning proof from many different places, and shows that they are committed to professional development because they're continuing to earn these badges as they move through their professional life. So learners really like them. They have a lot of value from a learner perspective, and really gets them to engage. And similarly then from the employer perspective, what we're also seeing is that they're starting to increasingly trust them as a form of validated credentials for achievements and skills. So it allows employers to validate, what their employees or potential employees have actually achieved, and also to confirm that those skills have been, issued and accredited by an organization that has an authority in that field. So if it's awarded by an association that, obviously the association is tied in with the industry that the employer is interested in or is associated with, and then it, really gives weight to the credential that the user has achieved. Mm-hmm. I think it has benefits on both sides for both employers and learners and students.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just hit the nail on the head here on where the opportunity lies for associations in this, in that it is in their their core wheelhouse. A little mistake here, but if you think about the 80 or 90,000 different associations that exist in the U.S. alone, if you go to their mission statement, almost always has something about training or learning inside of it. It almost always has networking and social interactions and the ability to bring like people together throughout different steps in their career, but all around a common topic. And their job really as an association is to develop the industry, make that industry stronger, whether that's lobbying in Congress and to producing content, or in this case, what we believe help closing the skills gap. And what's happened in associations, and probably in your association here over the last 10 years, is that you now have competition. For a long time, for decades, the association, for any particular industry or sub-industry was really the place to go for continuing education, the place to go for networking. But in the last 10 years, with the evolution of social media and the evolution of online training and cloud-based learning management systems and the ability to sell content online and the ability to create content, online content, to get easier and easier with monitoring authoring tools and using technologies like we're using today in virtual classrooms, all of that has lowered the bar of entry for competition for associations. And so professionals in any given field can go to universities that have great online education programs. There's commercial for-profit training companies. Even corporations are all getting into the game of providing continuing education and professional development content. And so many associations are in the mode of, over the last 10 years, of scrambling to go from a nonprofit to a profit mentality, and to justify those membership fees, proactive membership fees, and most importantly, to provide more value to their members. And I think all this is a good thing. Competition's a good thing to move the industry forward. And so, but associations have some tremendous advantages that the other groups don't have. And this is where digital badges is really going to, or digital credentials, helps bring out that advantage. But associations already have the audience. You already have the 50,000 or the 20,000 or whatever those amount of professionals are in your organization. You're already marketing to them. You're already collecting them. They're already in your association management system. Associations have the credibility. As Linda was saying, it's digital badges are good for both the issuers and the earners, and the reason being is, for the issuers, it's brand and marketing awareness inside the industry. And so you want your industry or your association to be the premier place to go to get credentials. They have the above missions of training and the expertise to identify the gap, because all of your members, of course, are working inside that particular industry that you service. You should and are identifying what those gaps are quicker than anybody else from a skill gap standpoint in that particular industry. And so associations have the ability to be very nimble, to have their ear on the ground, to understand the changes that are happening, and then quickly create smaller credentials that close gaps in the short run that happen that exist in that particular industry. And so those are the advantages those are the advantages for associations to over corporations or over academic institutions, because really of that existing social basis. But to continue on in that, as Linda was saying, the students love it. They're sought after because it helps you get a job. And if two candidates are equal and one has a series of digital badges and the other one doesn't, that could put you over the top in a lot of different jobs or in a lot of different promotions. And that continuous development that's going on anyway through continuing education and CMEs and CNEs and CEUs and all the other different types of credits, they also can be tied to these credentials. And so now it becomes more of a holistic program that provides broader value than any piece of training in a vacuum. And so I know you guys did some research over there inside your extensive customer base of associations. What did you find out, Linda?
Yeah, so we reached out to our various customers a few months ago, and I did a survey in general about digital badges, whether they use them, and if they didn't, how they may use them. And probably the most interesting one that fits in here was the answer to the question of how people would use digital badges. So they had a different range of areas that that they thought might be of interest. Really segmented into two sections. One about encouraging engagement and community learning and being able to share achievements with their social and peer groups, and get recognition for things like mentoring and coaching. That was one area, and the second area was more focused on things like recognizing their achievements and recognizing the members' achievements, but also then going back to your point, John, that we've just been talking about protecting their own association brand and relevance. So bringing value to their members and being able to then award them badges that are issued by the association, which have value and value add for the learner, and also validate what they've achieved for the potential learners' employers. So there's really two primary areas of focus. One around the association brand and validating more formal education, and competencies and skills that people have achieved. And then the second is really more around sort of encouraging engagement in the community and around mentoring and coaching. So, for example, I was talking to one association a few weeks ago who are, their first foray into this looks like it's going to be around the mentoring and coaching, because this is a big issue for them, that they have a large amount of members who are, looking at potentially retiring but have huge amounts of industry knowledge, and they want to find a way to encourage them to take part in mentoring and coaching programs and get some recognition for doing that over and above just taking part. And this is a way that they feel that they can encourage them to do that, which is, by using badges awarded by the association to recognize their contribution in this area.
Wow, great. So here's some great examples here that we pulled together for you, and I think to spoiler alert on the examples here, it's not difficult. It's not like climbing Mount Everest to extend continuing education and your learning activities into digital badges, and we'll show you how these 5 organizations are doing it. Linda?
So the first example we have here is the National Science Teachers Association. So as you can see actually down the right-hand side of the slide here, there's a number of different examples of the badges that they give out now for recognizing leadership and activities. Traditionally with teachers, much of their professional development was measured by literally how much time they spent in training, but there was little documentation of actually what they achieved in the training, or what they learned from it, what they gained from it coming out of it. So the National Science Teachers Association has been using badges and micro-credentialing as a way to progress that. So they have put in place a system that allows them to have leaderboards based on their badges to encourage teacher professional development, and it allows them to demonstrate the knowledge that they've actually gained of specific skills in their classroom. And these micro-credentials then, tying back into what John mentioned earlier about the metadata we can have in badges, ties back into examples of the work where they implement those skills and actual images of how they use those skills within the classroom. And that all ties back in again to the open badges platform so they can share it across the board. And similarly, I'm actually working with another organisation at the moment, the National Education Association, who have a program, their Teachers Leadership Institute, and they're also rolling out a similar approach right now, where they have a competency-based program which spans a number of years. But they're going to be rolling out micro-credentials and badges as subcomponents of that program. Again, all backed up with assessments and documentation of evidence of how these skills and competencies are actually actively in use.
Mm-hmm. Wow, good stories. Another one is the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So this is an organization that really started making the transition to online learning almost a decade ago, really being on the vanguard of associations making this. And what you see on the right-hand side here is they looked at it very holistically, and this is really the best, a good best practice, is that it's not just one badge. It's really your whole badging, your whole credentialing approach. And so what they were able to do is have, just from a graphical standpoint, to create similar badges that had different colors based on either skill levels and content and topical areas. And so they basically created a whole interlocking system here of these badges and the growth in the badges. And so it's all in an attempt really to drive membership awareness and standardization. I think there's at least 350,000 or so plus or minus certified public accountants just in the U.S. alone. And so it's important for an organization of this size really to come up with a standardized approach that's going to be in the industry for a long time. They do that through the Credly platform, which is a backpacking service that you can go to today even and see some examples from across the industries. And they have badges that expire annually. So that's something that once you earn, even if you earn a typical credentials, it may have expiration dates. But what I've seen in the digital badge research is that's more prevalent than not, really as a way to encourage that that ongoing acquisition of skills, for any profession. So there's typically expiration dates on that.
And then here we have a third example, in this case a slightly different example, EduCause, and they're a non-profit association focused on IT leaders and professionals. And they've actually implemented, they were an early adopter of digital badges. They've been working with it since about 2014. And they focus mainly on using digital badges as a way to show people's activity and involvement in the community and help users draw attention to their own professional development experiences in this area. So they award badges based on people presenting courses and programs, course completions, leadership development, contributions, community-based service awards, etc. So it's more about their contribution to their area, and what professional development really let them have a way to share their professional development experiences. And they, similar to John's previous example, also use the Credly platform as a way as an open backpack service to allow people to share their badges.
Now here's another fun one for those of you that we learned of from our friends over at Tagoras in their recent webinar with the National Wood Flooring Association. I thought this was a great example to show out of the library, because it was a lot of hard skills. And so they have, what they did is they did two different tracks for the sales of wood flooring and for the actual installation or the working with wood flooring. And for those of you that aren't familiar with wood flooring, apparently there's a lot of skills you need across to do this right, to understand like the different types of hardwoods, or how to replace just boards in the middle of a floor. And so there's a lot of these more. This one really followed the more micro approach, where it was very practical things that if you had, and you could demonstrate that you would have a lot of use in organizations that install flooring or buy flooring or sell flooring. And so they have a total of about maybe 16 or 18 different badges currently on all these smaller these smaller credentials, and once again using the Credly platform. So Credly, pretty credible here with associations. Dun-dun-dun. And another one, the American Occupational Therapy Association, similarly takes a very micro approach. So they certainly have their actual certifications that they could use, but for them it was, for these micro certifications, it was pass it with a certain grade threshold, and then there was the actual skills, the closing of the skills gap. They're the actual skills that just didn't exist from formal education, practical things like working with people with low vision and early identification of different conditions, and trying to proactively do that. And so if you are in this particular industry, there's a lot of credibility that you can earn by getting these micro badges and making them a differentiator in getting and landing a job. And once again, with the expiration here, they did a 5-year expiration, so that's a pretty good deal. You get one of these badges, you're good for 5 years, but still with that idea behind it of continuous development. And since there are, it really can be any time frame, but especially if you're trying to continue an education in most industries and most associations, you get the opportunity to have your learners come back year after year after year to consume content, to earn the credits that they need. And so tying these together with the expirations, but also with relevant topics here on a small basis, will allow the industry to adapt a lot quicker than it ever would just farming out of college. These folks use the Claim platform, also a part of the Open Badge Standard, and I believe that's from Pearson. So those are 5 examples, 5 different industries, some hard skills, some soft skills, some leadership skills. It's really all over. So there, it's a wide open book of how your association could close these gaps. And the content behind that, like all content, can be, of course, be anything. It could be instructor led or online or virtual, or really any medium is is not important. So, as an association, if you have content and you're offering continuing education and you're selling it, you're ready, 8 steps out of 10 down the road of being able to implement a digital badge strategy. And so you heard us talk today a couple different times that it's either a backpack service or it's an LMS, learning management system, that is the technology backbone to make this happen. And so most associations, LMS is the low-hanging fruit. So you can go to an open source or a Mozilla, backpack or Badger or Credly or Claim, like we were talking about. But in a lot of cases, that could be an incremental piece of software or an incremental system inside your organization, where a lot of associations or most associations have some sort of learning management system in place already. So I believe, and what I've seen is that leverage off of that is something that wouldn't cost any more typically, because you already have it in place. And so the learners are in place, the members are in place, the integration with whatever your AMS system is in place, the e-commerce is already there, and so is your content, at least your historical content, and hopefully that you're encouraging that social collaboration. So all the pieces that need to be the foundation can be found in an LMS in some cases. And so what does that look like? And from a practical standpoint, what do you need to have, or how would this all come together? So I'm sure some of you in the audience would think it still sounds pretty complex on how I can make this together. And what we hope to show here in these next few slides is just really how straightforward it can be from kind of a learning management perspective. And so I'll let Lindy take you through these next couple slides.
Sure. So I'm just going to give you a quick walkthrough about just some of the options and features you might have in an LMS, and then also what it would look like from the end user perspective, particularly if they're then going to take advantage of the badges that you're offering and share them out with the world. So here it's just sort of from an administration perspective, if you were to set it up in an LMS, this is an example of a list of badges that will be available and sort of the key things that you would be thinking about from a badge perspective. You can see here the sort of the titles, the different images of badges that you're offering in the system. You can see halfway down, one of them that's expired, so you can flag certain badges as no longer valid and expired, and people can then even use those in their profiles as badges they achieved over the years that are no longer valid, but they'll still remain there as something they want to use as evidence. And then you can then from here see things like the key things you want to set up are. So what would be, for example, the award criteria? So is it a sort of a very concrete piece of activity in the system? So they completed a course, or they attended an event, or they completed a number of courses, or is it more of a soft skill element where they've participated in a discussion forum, or they've logged in a certain amount of time, so they've contributed to mentoring? So you set up what the criteria are, look at the recipients, and then do simple things like, if you want to, and this is again only if you want to, from a communication perspective, set up things like notifications to be associated with the badges to push them out to people and make them aware that they're available, A, or B, if they've achieved them already, if they need to, regain them because they're going to expire, et cetera, et cetera. So you can sort of see here, this just gives you sort of an overview of the things you might think about if you were putting badges in place.
Interesting.
And then on the next slide is just a little bit more detail on this. It goes really into what we were talking about earlier on the metadata and so forth that you need to set up as part of your creating your badges. So this is just a simple form here where you can enter, your title, the description information about what the badge is about, and really the key element here, which is actually putting in your badge image. So, designing your badge, uploading it, making sure it's accessible and responsive and so forth. And then below that, the key information that you want to have shared with the world when somebody achieves your badge. If, your issuer, who they can contact for more information if they want to validate the badge and the achievement. And then a link back to your association website or to a URL that sort of provides some details. And expiry rules. So these are just some of the key things that you might want to think about, when you're setting up a badge. But this, as John mentioned, it's not terribly complex. It's fairly straightforward sort of thing to add in to any sort of learning program or LMS that you'd have.
It's neat to see just the clone as a handy way to not have to keep typing a lot of the same metadata in.
Exactly, yes. It's always useful to have that button. And then the second thing you have here is a member. This is just to give you an idea here about how you might use this in even advertising it in your own catalog. So if you're actively selling programs of courses, or you want to advertise them to your end users, here you have an option within the catalog where you can see the badges when people are going to browse at your shopping cart or browse in your catalog for what courses you offer to your members. They can see what badges they could achieve by taking part in these courses. And it could be one or more badges, based on subcomponents of the courses, but at least it gives people an overview of what programs and courses you offer that might let them achieve digital credentials.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool, because we go back to the competition of content in any particular industry. If it came down, as a learner, and you're looking at the for-profit training company, or you're looking at the association, and you can actually see the badges that you're going to earn, it's definitely going to sway you and convert more of those people to buy your content than content that doesn't have that. Or I think even if you had to click into this data, and then you could maybe read on the inside that you would earn a badge, but just bringing this right out as part of the e-commerce attraction of users is kind of a neat approach.
So perfect. Then here you move on to really what it means from an end user perspective. So this is just a simple example of a user's profile within an LMS. So here you can see, and the way this is divided out in our system is you have your own badges that you've achieved within the LMS at the top in a showcase. And then at the bottom here, you also have an option to pull in any badges that you've also achieved in the Open Badges backpack. So this is what, in a simple example, what other users would see about you if they looked at your profile within the LMS. But what you can then do, if you edit the profile, you can actually then decide, and if you just look at the next slide there, John, you can just see quickly how people can decide whether or not they want to actually show these. So they can see, they can use this screen to actually connect to Open Badges backpack, pull in all their badges, and decide which of these badges they want to be visible within their profile within the LMS, which ones they want to hide, what collections from Open Badges they share. So it gives them a lot of control over what they can push out to other people and make people aware of, and which ones they want to keep private because maybe they're not applicable in this particular scenario. So it lets end users control it. And then from here, end users have the option to directly connect to their Open Badges backpack. And this is really the key to everything, because as you've seen from everything we've talked about, the whole focus of this is to be able to share anything you achieve here with the outside world, and similarly be able to pull badges that you've achieved in other places into your profile in other systems. So here you can enter your Open Badges backpack details and use this as a way to connect to your Open Badges profile. And then it allows you then decide if you want to then publish this badge to an Open Badges backpack. So you can pick a badge. Once you're there, you have an option. And John, if you just click onto the next slide there, you'll just see just how it might look to users. If they're on the LMS, they can then choose a badge and publish that badge to the Open Backpack, and it will prompt the user and show them what badge is going to be published, what the criteria was for the badge achievement, who the issuer was, and are they happy to accept this badge in their backpack? Is this really what they want to publish to their backpack? Because now it's going out to the outside world. So users can control what they send out and see all their criteria and so forth that is relevant to it. And that's what other users will see when they look at it in the backpack.
Mm-hmm.
You see there, then you just get confirmation of how it's published. So it's a really simple process for people to publish and move data from an LMS into their Open Badges backpack into the much broader badging world.
And the advantage of pushing it into your Open Badge or your backpack is what it is. Is it because of the sharing on social media from that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, once you're in the Open Badges backpack, the whole point of it is that you can share it across any number of different other platforms. So, I actually have a couple more examples of how you can share it on the next couple of slides. So here's what it would look like in Open Badges itself. You can see all your different badges. You can set up your own collections of badges if they're under different criteria. So, social badges or IT badges, or if you were working for a teacher organization, your education-related badges. You can sort of set up your own collections here. in your Open Badges backpack. And then from there you have an option to share them out, because Open Badges integrates with a huge amount of systems, share them out into sort of more standard social profile platforms such as LinkedIn or Facebook or any of the other social media platforms. You can publish them out quickly, and that means, and you can see here, here's some examples of the same badge which has come from the LMS through the Open Badges backpack right through to your LinkedIn profile and to different media platforms. So it gives you a good example of how easy it is to do that. Move your badges around, and the Open Badges platform acts as a sort of central hub for this, allowing you to pull and push badges from different places.
Great. So there's some practical technology, some practical organizations that are using it. Discussion on digital badges and credentials. We covered a lot of ground today, and sliding right in at the top of the hour, so right on time. But some takeaways is that there's a lot of jobs that are open in all industries, just about all industries across the U.S. And with a low unemployment rate and formal education not meeting the need, there's an opportunity for associations to lead the way here of being nimble and quick and responsive to the industry, and to create stopgap training, issuing digital badges and credentials that then have value both from an employer standpoint, from a job seeker, from somebody trying to get a promotion, really value across the industry from a branding standpoint, but most importantly because it's helping close that skill gap in any particular industry. Somebody has to lead the way. I don't think that education can be reformed. It can be reformed, of course, to meet the needs of the private sector, but I think that's slower. And I think because there is so many different educational institutions, it's tougher for them to get that brand recognition. And I think the one place that associations can thrive is that they have all these members from all these different companies at all the different levels, and that's the advantage, to leverage existing technology that they have and that membership to make a difference in the world. And so last takeaway is leverage your LMS if you can, and even from a technological standpoint, it's a pretty short climb. So there you have it, folks. That's what we wanted to cover today, to give you some exposure to this topic and try to lay out a practical map. Here's our email addresses. Feel free to contact Linda or myself, and we'll point you in the right direction to each other as necessary here to answer your questions. If you do have, we'll send on Monday. Most likely, we'll send along the recording to this, and also a list of the links and a PDF of the slides, so that you have some of the practical things in here to take some next steps and do your own education. And I encourage you that if you are using badges inside your organization, please don't be shy. Send me an email, let me know, and we'll be able to give you some free publicity on that as we start to track organizations that are doing this, so that we can help all associations lead the way in their particular industry. So thanks for attending today. Linda, thanks so much for co-presenting here again with Talented Learning and myself, and sharing your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Not at all, John. Thanks for the time.
Okay. All right, everybody, have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.